Zillions. It's still two for the whole world. 10 toes down, chose my own words wisely. I poet like a bar. Send you spit like your cars.
What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of the Two for the World Show. The platform where we create us is Actual Factuals. I'm your host, William Zillions. On this episode, I want to talk a bit about sort of like a follow-up discussion to episode 20, the eviction crisis. Eviction crisis now. At that time, there was no response from our government. They couldn't, diplomatically work together on both sides to, come to an agreement to help the people. And instead, they took leave. You know what I'm saying? They were like, fuck this, I'm going on vacation, daddy-o. Just recently, the Trump administration did, they responded. I think it was like right on the first, or like the day after on the second or something like that, they released it. And it protected people until the end of the year from being evicted. Even if it's late, even if it's not that great, the people's lives is what matter. You know what I'm saying? The quality of life for people is what matters. Now, on that topic, it's interesting because from my understanding, this new extended moratorium, it does not cover the protection of the renter. Like, it's just fun. It's just money building up. Like, this is money that people will have to owe back and pay back and everything like that. What I want to talk about is the sort of like the media's approach, the conversation that's being pushed by our news and popular blogs that I've seen, because I'm trying to gauge some understanding. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, all right, let me go out here and get some information. I think it's very strange how the rhetoric right now focuses on only three members of this discussion: the renter, the homeowner, and then the government. The renter, the homeowner, and then the government. The media is trying to pin all these people against each other, all these levels of responsibility against each other, right? Hyper focus on the relationship between the renter and the homeowner, because they got to pay their bills. Everybody got to pay their bills, but now everybody's in a place right now financially because the world is not the same. And then there's pressure from the media talking about this relationship to put it on the government. What I don't understand is, where are the banks in all of this conversation? Where the fuck are the banks in all of this talk? Where is the media talking about the responsibility of the banks? Where's the government stepping in saying like, hey man? Now, I say that because I graduated high school 2007. The crash happened in 2008. And I just remember like the rhetoric being really, people losing their homes, yada, like really top tier, messed up signs that showed that there was some serious financial crisis taking place within our country, right? And it's on record. We still talk about it right now. However, I went back and looked at the banks, because that was what the whole conversation was about. It was a bailout, government bailout for the banks. From what I've read, there were 9 banks that were given $25 billion up front as a bailout. What seldom is discussed, though, is also inclusive of this amount was an additional $100 billion guaranteed for toxic assets. What the government allowed for banks to do was, if you say that you own something and the value of that thing was lost, then, bro, we got you on $100 billion of that. You feel what I'm saying? We got you $100 billion. So if you add it all up, $125 billion that went towards 9 banks. Now, each of these banks right now are worth trillions. But even at the time, oddly enough, 2007, 2008, these organizations were already billionaires. This sense of failure, I'm like, hey, like, where's this coming from? Like, the profit sheets of these companies, they've never seen a dip. They never seen no loss. They never felt like they I don't even understand where this rhetoric is coming from. You understand what I'm saying? Where are the banks in the discussion of helping the people? Look, I went to the ABA the ABA website. It was the American Bankers Association website, and I looked through to see what the banks are doing. They got a whole COVID-19 page, sort of everybody snitching on themselves of what they've done to help the community. Yo, like, ew, bro, disgusting stuff for real. Like, some of these banks that are worth trillions are saying that they donate and they're cool. You know what I'm saying? We're in the clear. This additional pressure that's being felt by the nation will all pause if the banks would step up and say, hey, man, we understand that the world is different right now. And just like y'all understood that the world was different when y'all gave us all $125 billion, even though we was already billions of dollars up. So I think it's very interesting that the government is sort of working against itself, painting this picture as if this is the biggest bailout ever seen. Like, I think that's a horrible rhetoric because it was not. Even per capita, you gave $125 billion to organizations that were already billion-dollar organizations. They weren't in need. So now that people are in actual need and we're trying to protect the quality of life across the board for all Americans, you know what I'm saying? I would like to one day have that talk about everybody on the planet, but for right now, let's just talk about America. Since this is supposed to be the first world gold standard of life living, you understand? However, our politicians, through their lack of action, their inability to work together to come to a conclusive decision in their conflict to help benefit the lives of Americans, that was not prioritized. Seldom what I've been seeing in my research, you know, I'm not no expert, but seldom it seems like it's not the priority in too many conversations. So for me, with this eviction crisis now conversation, and even with this being a resolve of, you know, that protects people for right now through December, I'm very much interested in the long game questions. And I do believe that, you know, I saw something that the Democrats are proposing $100 billion in funding for renters, you know, for people to be able to pay their bills. But ultimately, that's $100 billion to get paid to the banks. Another $100 billion going to the banks. Can we all take a pause with giving money to these damn organizations? I'd love to check out more of what some of these banks are doing. I understand not all banks are of the same size or of the same, you know, they don't all have the same value in the market. So much so that the top 4 take up 50% of all the assets of banking. The top 4 banks own 50% of the weight of all the assets in the entirety of banking in the world. 4 of them. Those same 4 banks are the same 4 banks that were given an additional $125 billion at the cost of American homes, at the cost of quality of life for Americans, sense of peace of mind for Americans. All of these things are very interesting to me because I was hoping that our politicians were working to improve upon the quality of life for Americans and not to continue to find reasons and ways to bicker beyond conclusion to conflict. There's no way your personal interests could be weighed to be more important than the lives of so many people, especially like with the lack of transparency that we have with our government already. See what I'm saying? So I do think that it's very nasty that the media is focusing on this issue from such a low perspective, like it's the renter and the homeowner, they beefing. I don't understand how we're trying to dehumanize this conversation. It's just very mind-boggling to me that banks can be so elusive in the discussion of saving the world when they themselves were saved by the world. No other business, bro. No other business. Yo, mad businesses done closed down amid COVID. And, you know, I talk about comic books often. I talk about a lot of comic book stores have been closed the fuck down. It's a whole industry that just got rocked. You know what I'm saying? Just completely got, no one cared. But in any other business, this is the norm. This is just like, you know, competition will come along. If that business cannot survive, something will come along and take its place. But with these banks, like, how is that not the case? And if such an effort was put into saving these, at this point, to me, the disgusting organizations, minimally effective in a positive way to the world-ass organizations, these banks, then to some effect, shouldn't they also be asking themselves how they should be able to make the world a better place? The focus being just on the renter and the homeowner, when both of these groups of people would be in a much better place financially, but also mentally. Like the mental stress that I could imagine that so many people across the country, they said 30 to 40 million. That's inclusive of adults and children. You understand what I'm saying? The stress that comes over the head from feeling like, damn, there's a disease outside that no one knows any solutions to, and if I go outside, I'll possibly die. Y'all call for for everybody to stay home, but then y'all don't do everything in your power. There's this discussion of like, oh, those people don't deserve that. First of all, we're talking about Americans. If we're talking about Americans, then Americans deserve to live the best life possible. That's what this whole conversation is supposed to be about, and that's why America was supposed to be so dope. And then now it's like y'all switching it up. Y'all not keeping that same energy, guys. Politicians, quote unquote leadership. It's nasty shit, man. You know what? I ain't gonna talk your ear off, you know what I mean? That was just my little 2 cents on this topic, sort of like a follow-up. I'll definitely dig a little deeper into it, because the information that I'm finding so far, like 2-3 pages in. But, hey, man, if you're interested in any of the stuff I'm talking about, please tap in with me, you know what I'm saying? This has been another episode of the Two for the World Show. You know what I'm saying? The platform where we create us is Actual Factuals. I'm your host, William Zillions. And yeah, man, stay true. It's still 2-4.
What with all this passion will bring me? Go for the everlasting greatness. I believe you see it. What the fuck you? You ain't no one property. Vibrate higher, don't you mute your colors of nobody. Nobody say you nothing, fuck out of here. Go for your win, no need for you to slow up. For none of these nobodies. What's up? Yeah. So your dreams will go up. Nobody. Vibrate higher, don't you mute your color.